Hello everyone, welcome back to diaprep Partners Successful US College Application. Today, in our second series, we'll be discussing under the topic, Who am I versus What am I? Let's begin with a simple, very interesting phenomenon, a question to be more precise. We see often a lot of high accomplished students failing in their college application process. And at the same time, we see a lot of unexpected results from students who we might have believed was less qualified. Why do you think that is so? Why is it that more than often we fail to predict who gets into good schools and who gets in who doesn't? I think that lies in this very question of how should we distinguish between what am I and who am I? The reason why we fail is because while the admission committee wants to see who you are, in other words, wants you to answer who am I through the application process, many of the candidates simply rely on what am I. So this discrepancy in the strategy, the tone, and the content of the application, I think is a major reason why people fail. And today, we are going to look at three different most common misconceptions about what am I and who am I. So the first misconception is leadership. Let me start with a question. And answer this question as you go along, as it will be the basis for our analysis. Who do you believe is the greatest leader? Some would say Martin Luther King. Some would say Abraham Lincoln. Some might even say Gandhi. Okay, now, why do we respect them? They are leaders, but think carefully. Why do we call them leaders? Why? The reason being is the next conflict. Let's look at this sentence. I am a school president versus I have a warm heart. Let's go back to that original question. Do you respect Martin Luther King because he was a religious advocate? Or do you respect Martin Luther King because he had a warm heart? Also, one, do you respect Abraham Lincoln for being a president? Or two, do you respect Abraham Lincoln because he cared for social injustice? The answer is straightforward, right? We respect Martin Luther King because he cared. He had a warm heart and he was willing to make changes. We respect Lincoln because he fought for social justice, not because of their position. This is where everyone gets it wrong. This is where most students fail. They are preoccupied in highlighting their leadership positions that they fail to express what kind of leader they are. In other words, they are preoccupied with what I am and failing to address who I am. So look at your resume and read the descriptions. If your resume resonates the impression that he or she has many leadership positions, it's a red flag. Because it shouldn't be the position that should be highlighted. It should be the personality which should be highlighted. So if you are going to represent leadership, please make sure that don't focus on your position, but on the following 5 to 6 characters and values. So, 1, leadership is represented through sacrifice. This is why many universities, colleges want you to be involved in community services. This is why in the application they ask for how many hours did you spend a week and how many weeks did you spend doing this activity. Because sacrifice at the end of the day could be summed up as how much time did you spend for others and not for yourself. So this is a very accumulative and quantitative element. You cannot simply say, I have a warm heart and spend 1 hour a year volunteering. So the more time you spend, the more sacrifice you are making, meaning the better leader you become. So one, unless you have tons of sacrificing hours, then you are not a leader. And make sure not to emphasize leadership in your essays. Number two is that to be a good leader, you have to be a community person. You can't be selfish. What happened with Adolf Hitler? He was selfish to the Aryan race. That's why he committed such crimes against humanities. So how do you represent community? This, I think, is best represented through how many collective activities or groups you are a member to. So it is better to be part of a sporting team rather than an individual endeavor. It is better to be part of an orchestra rather than being a solo. Likewise, throughout your essay, make sure that you are a community person. Furthermore, this community is further expressed through something recently which has been emphasized by a lot of colleges is advocacy and change. In the past, volunteering was simply helping. But nowadays, they've went one step further. What they want is that a leader or a person with leadership trait should be willing to speak on behalf of the minorities or willing to identify social ills. And based on this identification, he or she must be willing to engage in actions that brings about social change. I think Brown loves this, but I think all schools love this because it's represented in their mission statement. So if you believe that you are a good leader, ask yourself, how many people have I helped recently? What kind of changes have I brought to our community? If the answer to those two questions are no, then you are not a good leader. Next is communication. You have to have good communication skills. But don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that you have to get an A on English literature. Communication is represented through what kind of activities you are involved in. Let's say you're involved in the debate team. That requires great communication skills. Let's say you're involved in the journalism club. That requires communication. Likewise, make sure that in your resume, you have activities that demonstrate these communication skills. Also, there's an element of respect and work, but I would like to sum this up. So, leadership is not about position. It is about character and trait. You need sacrifice. You have to be a member of a community. You have to advocate. You have to bring change. You have to have successful communication skills. And these values and skills are represented through vast array of activities. Therefore, don't simply limit yourself to one or two activities. Don't do that. Just don't be greedy and take on leadership in anything you do. Make sure to distinguish between the what and the who. You don't want to become the what. Oh, he has 10 leadership skills. But rather, you want to be the who. Who is he? What kind of leader is he? He's a sacrificing leader. He's an advocating leader. He has empathy. Likewise, it is always about the who and not the what. And this confusion between what and who is most apparent in highlighting leadership in your application. Leadership is important. So please make sure that in both of your essays and resumes, you don't end up with the what essay or the what resume. End up with the who essay and the who resume, because that will get you into good schools. The second misconception we often find is I am good at. So misconception 2, I began with I am good at, but let's look at this. Let's read that little phrase. A big fish in a small pond. Yep, big fish in a small pond. Let me begin with this little story. Let's say you are a good football player. You're the captain of your school team. Does that make you number one? No. If you are really good, then you'll be representing the state. If you're better, then you'll be representing the country. Likewise, this is what it meant by the big fish in a small pond. Don't believe that the world around you is everything. There is more outside the school boundaries. So make sure that when you're preparing for college, or even so more fundamentally, when you're in your high school, make sure that you don't limit your activities to the school boundary. Go outside the school, okay? Go beyond the school. Find experiences of your interest outside your comfort zone. Let's do the simple math. How many days do you go to school? 5 days, right? So what do you do on the remaining 2 days? How many months are you at school? At most 9 months or 8 months per year? Then what do you do with the remaining 4 to 5 months? That's what the school is looking for. They want you to be diligent and loyal to the school, yes. But because students are spending 40% of the day, week, month, year outside the school, school or top colleges are eager to know what you're doing. This is what I mean by a big fish in a small pond. If you believe that you have done everything and you have accomplished great things in your school boundary, in that spectrum, it's only 60. You're the big fish in that small pond, which is your school. But what universities want is you to go out. Go out to the real world and explore. Make sure that the 40% of your activities or 40% of your story comes from somewhere outside the school. But don't get this wrong. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be diligent in school. You have to be faithful. Go to classes. Utilize all the opportunities you have. But that only makes you a big fish. I want you to become a big fish in a big pond, right? So go out and use your potentials and use your talent to explore and learn and experiment. That's what schools want. Okay? And lastly, this is a concept that's built on misconception. 2 is the official capacity. It states what I do at school versus what I do outside the school. Misconception 2 pillared around this big fish in a small pond where I told you to go outside. Then misconception 3 focuses more on what to do when you go outside. Okay? Many get this wrong by, so I have to join a fancy club. I have to join a research center. I have to join a prestigious institution. No. That's not it. What I mean by go outside the school boundary and go beyond the official capacity is what do you like on your personal level. So once again, what are you and who are you? Don't misconfuse this. What are you is what you do in school now. Who are you is what you do during your free time. So another balance that you should, ratio you should keep in mind is the 7-3 ratio. Whether it be official or unofficial, whether it be in or outside school, at the end of the day, on the common application, you end up writing 10 activities. Among those 10, 7-3 represent the nature of the activity, meaning 3 should be personal, meaning something you like, something that is representative of you. Let's say you like watching movies. Keep track of all the movies that you've seen. Upload it to Google Drive and write that down as one of your activities. Let's say you like to cook. That could be a personal activity. So what I mean by that 7-3 ratio is 7, be diligent. Spend time. But for the 3, do something that is representative of your personality. This personal character, I believe, is what many students fail. It's not about misconception, I think. I think personality is not represented through your application because of misconception 1 and 2. But it's your application. It's you. So your personality has to be there. Okay? So you have heard that in many books, read any books written by CEOs. It will say this. They believe what the most important thing in life is to balance work and life. That's what we call healthy living. Those who just work, they're going to die early. Those people who just enjoy life, I don't know. But if you want to be successful, or what successful person is defined in society now is a balance between work and life. And colleges want that. They want you to be diligent in 60 to 70% of the activities. But also 30 to 40% of the activities, they want to see who you are, your personality. So misconception 3 is pillared on this official capacity, meaning you have to have something that is unofficial. That is you. It is something that you do on a regular basis. It is something that makes up who you are. And that has to be included in your application and in your essay. I think throughout these 3 misconceptions, I have clearly stated the difference between what I am and who I am. And while many students focus on what, colleges want to see who. And while who may not seem that impressive, it is what schools want. It is what gets you into good schools. So make sure that when you're preparing for school, don't focus on just the what's. Make sure that you clearly represent who you are through these personal activities. Okay? I think we'll wrap it up for today. So, essence, conflict between what and who. We are tempted to write down the what's in the applications, but colleges want to see who you are. So if you want me to go over your resume or over your essays, please feel free to contact us at our number or email us, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.